The stars above were silent. Nara walked alone across the ashes of her old world. Her steps were slow. Her long feet sank into the soft gray dust. The sky above was dark, with broken clouds and the fading trails of burned ships dot her planet Ilari. Prime was once full of life. Green oceans, tall trees, cities with silver towers and glowing lights. But now there was only smoke and ruin. The war had ended, but for Nara, it had ended too late. She had no one left. The Syndicate war fleet had come without warning. They did not ask questions. They wanted control, resources, power. They saw her people, the Laraes, soft and weak. The Larab believed in peace and song, not war. So the Syndicate burned their cities and silenced their music. Nara had been just a student. She sang at the Temple of Winds. She learned old HFY stories. But that life was gone. Now she had no home, no family. No plan, only a broken escape ship and the will to survive. Her small shuttle sat hidden inside a cave. Its power was almost gone. The food box had only 3 packets left. The water tank was dry. She used a small solar panel to charge the ship's battery, but the sun here was weak. One night, while checking the nav screen, Nara found something, an old map from before the war. A star chart made by traders. A green moon near the human frontier. A name in a forgotten corner. Eden-3. There were no Syndicate markings on it. Maybe they didn't care about it. Maybe it was too far, or maybe someone peaceful lived there. She stared at the name for a long time. Eden. The word felt warm in her mind. The ship's engine gave one last tired hum as it took off. Nara held the flight stick tightly. Her hands shook. Her body was thin. Her eyes were tired. But her heart beat fast. The trip took 3 days. She slept in short naps, scared to close her eyes for too long. Once, a Syndicate patrol passed nearby. She shut down all systems and hid in a field of asteroid rocks. When she finally saw Eden-3, she gasped. It was small but beautiful, covered in trees. Blue rivers cut across the green surface. She saw no signs of war, no metal towers, no ships, no smoke. Maybe, just maybe, she had found a place the war had forgotten. As the shuttle entered the sky, a windstorm hit it hard. The ship was too old. The controls started failing. Lights flashed red. The engine cried. Nara tried to steer, but the ship spun too fast. Alarms screamed. The ground came closer, then everything turned black. When she opened her eyes, it was dark. She was lying on soft cloth. A blanket covered her. A warm fire flickered nearby. She sat up quickly, her head dizzy, her arm hurt. Her side was bandaged. Her clothes were changed. Panic rose in her chest. Then a quiet voice spoke from the shadows. "You're safe. Don't move too fast. You hit the ground pretty hard." Nara turned her head. A human stood near the fire. He was tall, with short brown hair and kind eyes. His clothes were simple, a black shirt, worn boots, a tool belt around his waist. He didn't look like a soldier. He didn't wear armor. He had no weapon in his hand. Just calm eyes. "My name's Mark," he said. "Mark Rilland. This is my place. You crashed not far from my cabin. I found you in the woods." Nara didn't speak. Her throat was dry. He handed her a metal cup. She took it carefully. "Water. Clean. Cold. Real. Drink," he said. "You need it." She drank slowly. Her hands shook. Mark sat on a wooden chair. He didn't stare. He didn't ask questions. He just sat, as if giving her space was more important than answers. The next day, Nara woke again. This time, in the morning light, she saw the cabin clearly. It was small, but strong. Made of wood and metal parts. There were tools on the wall. A small kitchen, a garden seen through the window. A little round machine with blinking lights rolled across the floor. It made soft beeping sounds and cleaned up ashes. Nara stayed quiet. She didn't know if she could trust him. But her wounds were healing. Her body felt less cold. Mark came in with a bowl of soup. "Not fancy," he said, "but it'll help." She stared at the steam rising from the bowl. Her stomach growled. She ate. It was simple and warm. The best things she had tasted in weeks. Later, as the sun set, Mark fixed a piece of broken wiring on the roof. Nara watched from the doorway. He worked with care. He spoke to the machine, calling it, "B, hand me the wrench." He said, "The small robot beeped and rolled over with the tool." Nara couldn't help but smile. Mark looked down and saw her. "You don't have to stay," he said softly. "But if you want, this place is quiet. I grow my food. The storms don't come here often." She didn't answer. She didn't know what to say, but in her heart, something warm began to grow. Not trust, not yet, but maybe hope. Nara stayed in the cabin. Days passed slowly, like soft rain falling on dry ground. Each morning, she woke to the smell of firewood and the sound of birds outside the small window. The air was clean, the ground was real. No metal, no machines. Flying overhead, no fear, but still, she said very little. Mark didn't ask her to speak. He just let her heal. She noticed how quiet he was, not in a cold way, but peaceful. He didn't talk too much. He worked with calm hands. He moved like someone who had no hurry left in him. Nara watched him build a fence from wood, fix wires, dig in the garden, cook food. He seemed to be part of the land, like the trees or the wind. One afternoon she sat on the steps of the cabin, her feet bare, warming in the sun. Mark was working on the old drone bee. Its left wheel was stuck. Mark gently turned the gears, cleaning out leaves and dust. "Bee's not smart," he said with a small smile. But he tries." Bee beeped twice and spun in a circle like it understood. Nara smiled. It was the first time her face had truly relaxed in weeks. Mark noticed but didn't say anything. He just kept working. That night, as they sat by the fire, Nara finally asked a question. "Why, do you live here alone?" Mark looked at the flames for a moment before answering. "I used to be part of something big," he said. "Terran engineering corps. I built machines for war. Then I saw what war really does." He paused. "I left. Came here, wanted peace. And I thought if I stayed small, quiet, the galaxy would forget about me." Nara looked at him, her large, silver eyes filled with sadness. "I didn't want to be forgotten," she whispered. "But now I have no one." Mark didn't speak right away. He added a small log to the fire. The flames rose, warm and gentle. "You're not no one," he said. "You're here. You survived. That means something." As the days turned to weeks, Nara began to do small things. She helped cook. She watered the plants. She found berries in the woods and showed Mark which ones were safe. She began teaching him words in the Lara language. He taught her human words in return. They laughed at strange pronunciations and mixed up meanings. She told him that in her culture, names had feelings. A name could mean light after rain or star that never moves. Mark asked what her name meant. "Nara," she said softly. "It means the one who still walks." "That fits," Mark said with a smile. One day, Mark gave her a gift, a small wooden bracelet he had carved himself. It had gentle curves and a single blue stone. In the center, Nara held it in her hand, her fingers trembling slightly. "In my world," she said, "this would be—" "A promise gift?" Mark looked surprised. "I didn't mean it like that. Just something to remind you you're not alone." She smiled gently. "I know, but still, it's the first thing someone gave me since the war." She wore the bracelet. Every day after that, one evening, a storm rolled over the hills. Thunder echoed across the sky. Rain fell in heavy drops. Nara stood at the doorway, watching the wind bend the trees. She looked at Mark. "I should go," she said suddenly. "I've stayed too long. I don't want to bring danger to you." Mark looked up from where he was sharpening a tool. "Go where?" She opened her mouth, then stopped. She had no answer. Mark stood and walked over to her. "This cabin doesn't belong to me," he said. "It's just a place, but it's a safe place. And if you need it, it's yours too." Nara stared at him. No one had ever said that to her before, not even in the old times. That night, she didn't sleep well. She had dreams of her Homilari Prime before the war. She saw her mother's face, her brother playing with the wind harp, her teacher smiling as she sang, then fire. Screams, Empty silence. She woke up crying. Mark was sitting outside her door. Not speaking, just keeping watch. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. The next morning, the rain was gone. The world looked clean again. Nara stepped outside. The garden had survived. Bee was trying to chase a bird away from the carrots, spinning in little angry circles. Mark laughed. Nara laughed too, and in that moment it felt real, not like a dream, not like a memory, but something new. That evening, as they watched the twin moons rise, Nara spoke again. Do you think the galaxy will ever stop fighting? Mark shook his head. I don't know. But I think small places like this matter more than people think. She looked at the trees, the stars, the quiet cabin behind her. I think you're right, she said. Then she looked at him. And maybe I can help protect this place too. Mark nodded. Then we protect it together. And so, in a quiet forest on a forgotten moon, two souls from two different worlds began to build something stronger than walls or weapons. They began to build trust. They began to build home, together. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into a quiet rhythm. Nara no longer felt like a stranger in the cabin. Her steps were lighter. Her eyes no longer looked at the sky in fear. She still missed her world, but this place, this little green moon had, started to feel like something close to peace. She now had a bed of her own. Mark had built a small room for her beside the cabin using spare wood and ship parts. The walls were not perfect, but they held the warmth of care. He had even carved her name on a piece of wood and placed it by the door. Nara. She smiled when she saw it. In the Lara way, writing someone's name meant you wanted them to stay. Nara helped Mark with daily tasks. She watered the garden and picked berries. Mark taught her how to fix small machines. Together they repaired Bee's voice module. And now the drone beeped in full sentences, though it still spoke in a funny, robotic tone. Bee loves plants. Bee does not like birds. They laughed together often. For the first time in a long while, Nara laughed like she meant it. In return, she taught Mark about the Lara way of life. She showed him how her people use colors and songs to pass memories. One evening, she drew stars on the ground using crushed berries and tree dust. These were our constellations, she said softly. We sang their names to remember who we were. Mark sat beside her, listening. You should write them down, he said, so they don't disappear. Nara looked at him, surprised. No one ever said that before. Mark smiled. Then I'm glad I did. One night, under the twin moons, she sang a Lara song. It was soft and slow, like wind in a deep valley. The song was about two stars that wandered the galaxy, always alone until they found each other and stayed. Mark listened in silence. When the song ended, he looked at her. That was beautiful, he said. Nara looked away, a little shy. It's called Starbond. It's about finding your place. Mark nodded. Sounds like us. Later they sat by the garden fire. Nara spoke of her people, their kindness, their love for learning. She told him about the temples and the schools. In the sky trees, Mark listened to every word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. I'm sorry your world was taken, he said. She nodded slowly. I don't want revenge. I just want something good to grow again. Mark looked at the garden they had built together. It already is. He said, but not everything was quiet. One morning, Bee rolled in, blinking red. Warning. High-frequency scan detected. Possible ship in orbit. Nara's face froze. Could it be the Syndicate? Mark checked the old scanner in his cabin. A small dot blinked on the edge of the radar. It's not one of ours, he said. They're searching. Nara's hands trembled. They're looking for me. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we hide you well. They won't take this place. They worked fast. Mark activated an old Camodoma device that created a fake rock image over a shelter. He set it up in the woods behind the cabin. Nara helped carry supplies there. They turned the dome into a small hideout with food, water, and blankets. If anything happens, Mark told her, you go there and wait. Don't come out until I give the signal. She looked at him. What about you? He smiled gently. I'll be here. This is my home too. That night, as stars returned to the sky, Nara sat alone in the shelter for a few minutes, testing it. The inside was quiet and dark. She could hear only her breath. It reminded her of hiding back on Alari Prime when the bombs fell, and she had no one. But this time, it felt different, because now someone was standing outside for her, someone she trusted. The next day passed with tension. Mark went to the hills with B to watch the sky. The unknown ship didn't land, but it circled. Once. Nara stayed hidden. When Mark returned, he had news. They didn't spot us. For now, we're safe. But they might come again. Nara nodded. We should be ready. They both agreed. It was time to build more than just a garden. They would build a place that could survive. They began working harder. Mark used parts from Nara's crashed shuttle to reinforce the cabin. They added underground storage, a hidden door, and stronger lights. Nara helped design new warning systems using Lerai Tech. She was no longer just a guest, she was a builder now. A protector. Mark watched her one evening as she set up a sensor node. You've changed, he said softly. Nara looked up. I don't feel broken anymore, he nodded. You never were. That night, they stood under the stars. Nara pointed to two small stars in the sky. Those are the twins from the Starbond song. Mark smiled. The Wanderers? She nodded. They were lost for a long time. But then they found each other. He looked at her, quiet for a moment. Then he said, maybe they were meant to. In the middle of a war-torn galaxy, where hope had grown cold and homes had turned to dust, two hearts from different worlds had found peace in a quiet place. They hadn't planned it, they hadn't asked for it, but now it was theirs, a home between stars. The air was colder than usual. Mark noticed it first. Birds that usually sang in the morning were quiet. The sky, always clear and wide, had thin dark clouds stretching over the hills. Nara stood at the edge of the garden, staring up. They're watching again, she said softly. The scanner beeped from inside the cabin. A faint signal moved across the radar, closer than before. Mark walked in and checked the screen. Same type of ship. Not syndicate military, but not friendly either, Nara nodded. Scouts. Maybe bounty hunters. She knew the signs. The syndicate didn't chase survivors unless they were important. And she had once been a temple memory keeper, one who held the names and knowledge of Laravi leaders. Maybe someone wanted her silence, or maybe they just wanted to make sure no Larai lived at all. That night, the wind howled through the trees. Nara didn't sleep. She stood near the door with her cloak wrapped tight. Listening to every sound, Mark worked on securing the camo shelter again. He placed emergency supplies in it, including a small communication jammer and a flare. He rolled back and forth, scanning the forest with its blinking blue eye. This isn't just a one-time flyby, Mark said. They're searching for something. Nara looked down. They're searching for me. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. Then they'll have to get past both of us. The next morning, they found something new. Tracks. Deep boot prints near the edge of the forest. Too heavy for B, too wide for Nara. Someone had been walking near the cabin. Nara stared at them, her heart beating faster. They're already here. Mark's eyes narrowed. He bent down and studied the ground. Maybe just one scout, testing the area. We'll have to move fast. They made a plan. Mark would create decoy trails leading far from the cabin. Nara would hide key tools and documents. B would fly a loop with noise decoys, tricking any heat sensors. They wouldn't fight unless they had to, but they were ready if it came to that. Later. While Mark was gone, Nara found herself holding the wooden bracelet he had given her weeks ago. It had become her anchor, a small reminder of safety. She remembered what her mother once told her. Home is not stone or wood. It is someone who waits for you. She held the bracelet tight. Then, the sound of a branch snapping outside, her heart froze. She grabbed the small signal knife Mark had made for her. It wasn't much, but it could blind a drone or trigger a flare. She moved silently toward the door. B rolled beside her. Warning. Life form detected. Small movement. Southeast. She peeked through the wall camera. A shadow moved among the trees. Mark returned just as the sky began to turn orange with sunset. He saw Nara waiting outside. Knife in hand, I saw someone, she whispered, watching. Mark didn't ask questions. He handed her a small metal device. A signal net. Throw it at their feet. It traps motion for 30 seconds. She nodded and placed it in her cloak. That night, they stayed awake in shifts. Mark took the first half. Nara sat by the fire after midnight, eyes wide open, ears sharp. When her shift ended, Mark sat beside her. You don't have to do this, he said. You can still run. Nara looked at him, firm and calm. I'm not running anymore. The next day, they found a broken drone half buried near the North Ridge. It had syndicate marks, but they were scratched out. The machine was old, worn, and likely used by scavengers or bounty crews. Mark checked the memory core. It was scanning for Leroy DNA, he said. Definitely tracking you. Nara's hands clenched. They're getting closer, Mark looked at her. If they land, we may have to fight. Are you ready? She didn't speak at first. Then she looked him in the eye. I'm not a soldier, Mark, but I will protect this place. They spent the whole day setting traps and signals in the forest. Nara used her knowledge of soft terrain and hidden paths. Mark set up EMP charges from old ship parts. They didn't speak much, just worked. Side by side. By evening, they were tired, but the cabin was ready, or at least as ready as it could be. That night, as they sat near the fire, Mark finally asked a question he had kept inside. Why didn't you tell me before? That someone might come for you? Nara sighed. I didn't know at first. Then I hoped they would forget me. She looked into the flames, but I was wrong. The syndicate never forgets. Mark nodded slowly. Then we remind them that not everything can be taken. She looked at him. I was afraid when I landed here, she said. But now, I feel like I've found something worth standing for. Mark smiled gently. So have I. And far above, in the cold silence of space, a black ship hovered near Eden 3's orbit. Inside, a pale-faced man with a metal eye stared at the scans. He smiled. She's down there, he said. Prepare to land. Back on the ground, as a breeze moved through the trees, Nara and Mark stood together. Watching the stars, they knew something was coming, but they were no longer afraid. They were no longer alone. Whatever was coming, they would face it as one. Together. It began just before dawn. B's voice woke them both. Alert, incoming ship. Landing zone, South Ridge, Ada. 2 minutes. Mark jumped out of bed and grabbed his coat. Nara was already putting on her boots. They had prepared for this moment. But now it felt real. He looked at her. We don't run unless we have to, she nodded. We stay, we fight if we must. Outside, the wind was strong. It carried the sharp smell of metal-burnt fuel and heat. The ship was coming fast. The forest animals had already gone quiet. Only B's warning beeps filled the air. Mark checked the scanner one last time. One ship? Small crew? Maybe 5 or 6. Nara looked toward the southern ridge. Scouts or hunters? Mark answered without looking away. Bounty hunters. The kind that sells silence. They ran to the camo shelter and activated the jamming field. Nara placed her memory scrolls inside the secret compartment. She closed the hidden hatch, covering it with soil and leaves. Mark handed her a short-range signal knife. Only use. And if we get separated? She nodded. Don't get separated. The ship landed with a loud hum and sharp gusts of wind. Its body was long, black, and sharp like a claw. Red lights blinked on its side. The door opened slowly, steam hissing out. 5 figures stepped out, 4 wearing dark helmets, 1 without. The one without a helmet had a pale face and a red mechanical eye. His uniform had syndicate marks, but they were faded. He smiled coldly as he scanned the forest. She's here, he said. I can feel it. Mark and Nara watched from the hilltop, hiding behind thick trees. Mark whispered, We can't face them head-on, we separate them. Nara nodded and pressed a small remote. In the distance, one of the traps exploded, flashing light and heat. One of the hunters turned and ran toward it. Mark threw a noise decoy in the opposite direction. Another hunter followed that sound. 2 down, Mark whispered. 3 to go. But then B beeped loudly. Alert, 1 unit. Approaching the garden. They hadn't expected them to move that fast. Mark turned to Nara. I'll protect the cabin. You go to the high ridge. If anything goes wrong, get to the camo shelter. I'm not leaving you, she said. I'm not asking, he replied. I'm trusting. Nara looked at him. Her heart pounded, but she understood. She took the path through the trees and disappeared. Mark ran toward the garden. Rifle in hand. At the cabin, the pale-eyed leader stood at the fence. He looked at the plants, the hand-built tools, the carved wooden name, Nara. He smiled cruelly. So, she made a home. Mark stepped out from the trees. You're not welcome here, the man turned. You're just a human. You don't understand what she carries? She's dangerous. Mark aimed his rifle. You're wrong. She's healing, the man laughed. Healing? From what? Her kind's destruction? Mark narrowed his eyes. No, from people like you. Then the fight began. The other two bounty hunters charged. Mark fired a warning shot and ran behind the garden wall. Bee flew in fast, dropping a flash bomb. The bright light blinded the closest hunter. Mark took him down with a shock blast, but the second one dodged and fired back. Mark ducked behind the shed. Bee beeped. Weapon charge, 60%. We just need to hold a little longer, Mark said. Then a new voice came over Bee's speaker. Nara, I'm at the ridge. I see the leader. I can stop him. Mark shouted. No, don't risk it. But it was too late. From the top of the ridge, Nara activated the signal knife. A beam of light shot into the sky. It hit the pale-eyed man in the shoulder, throwing him backward. He screamed in pain. Mark took the chance and tackled the second hunter. A quick punch and a shock from Bee ended that fight, but the leader, wounded and angry, looked up at Nara on the hill. You, he growled. You're supposed to be extinct. Nara stood tall. I survived. And I'm not afraid. He raised his weapon, but Bee fired a final bolt of energy from behind. It struck his back. He collapsed. Mark ran to Nara. Are you okay? She nodded. I am now. They stood in silence, watching the enemy ship. The last two bounty hunters, hearing their leader was down, escaped into the trees. The ship powered down, lifeless. Mark looked at her. It's over. Nara shook her head. No, others will come. Then we keep building, he said. We make this place strong. Not just for us, but for anyone who needs a home. She looked into his eyes. You gave me a home when I had nothing, Mark smiled. You gave it meaning. Later, they buried the body of the fallen man far from the cabin. Nara placed no marker. Some names, she said, should be forgotten. Then together they returned to the garden. Bee buzzed softly. Cabin status, safe. Heart status, full. They laughed. That evening, as the stars appeared, Nara sang again. This time the song was different. Not one of mourning, but of protection. And courage. It echoed across the forest like a promise that this place, this home, would not fall, not while they stood together. The sun rose slowly over Eden. 3. Golden light touched the tops of the trees, the garden, and the little wooden cabin. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. Birds began to sing again. It was peaceful, but Mark and Nara knew peace didn't come without effort. And it didn't stay without protection. It had been a week since the bounty hunters came. Their ship still sat in the forest, empty and quiet. Mark had stripped its tech. Bee used the pieces to upgrade the cabin scanner and solar panels. The forest had returned to normal. But the two hearts inside the cabin had changed forever. Nara now walked without fear. She didn't keep her cloak wrapped tight anymore. She moved freely through the garden and along the ridge, planting new seeds and fixing fences. Mark watched her with quiet pride. She wasn't just surviving, she was living, and she had made this place her own, one evening, as the wind moved softly. Through the trees, Nara found Mark fixing the solar grid near the garden wall. Will others ever come here? She asked. He wiped his hands and stood. Maybe, maybe not. But if they do, they'll find something good. Nara nodded slowly. Then we should prepare for them. Mark looked at her with a small smile. What do you mean? I want to build another house, she said. A place for anyone who's lost, like I was, a shelter, not just for Lara, for anyone. Mark thought about it. a quiet corner of the galaxy, a place for lost souls to find peace. That's a good idea, he said. They shook hands on it. The next few days were busy. Mark cut fresh wood from nearby trees. Nara helped stack the beams and shape the walls. Be carried tools and offered helpful tips like use stronger supports for the roof and humidity level rising pause painting. They laughed often. Nara started carving symbols from her old temple into the wood. Not as a memory of the past, but as a promise for the future. One symbol meant welcome. Another meant safety. She placed them above the door. One afternoon, as they rested near the fire, beep beeped. Unknown signal detected. Distance, 300 kilometers. Small ship entering orbit. Mark's eyes narrowed. Another syndicate scout? B paused. Negative. Civilian ID, old Earth code, not dangerous. Mark raised his eyebrows. A human ship? Nara stood. Should we hide? Mark shook his head. No, if they're human, maybe they're just like me. Looking for quiet, the ship landed gently near the clearing. It was small, rusted, and clearly used for long travel. A single figure stepped out, tall, tired, and wearing a faded Earth jacket. He raised his hands and spoke with a friendly voice. I'm not here to steal or fight. I just needed a place to breathe. Mark walked forward slowly. This is a peaceful place. The man nodded. Then I won't break that peace. Over the fire that night, the visitor introduced himself. Name's Jacob, used to be a freighter pilot. Got tired of war, got tired of running. Just wanted to land somewhere quiet. Mark looked at NEHR. She smiled gently. Then you found the right place. In the days that followed, Jacob helped build. He was good with machines and helped rewire the scanner to cover more ground. He didn't ask many questions, and Nara liked that. More ships came. Not many, just one or two each season. A woman with a sick child. An old man who had lost his crew. A pair of young engineers, tired of working for greedy traders. Mark and Nara welcomed them all. The single cabin became a small village. Homes grew, like the plants, slowly but with care. Nara taught songs and stories of the Lurai. Mark helped teach farming and defense. Jacob taught repairs and jokes from Earth. B became the village guide. Children followed him around, giggling as he gave important safety tips. One night, as they sat under the stars, Nara spoke. I once thought my people were gone forever. That I would die alone on a cold world. She looked at the fire, then at Mark. But this place, it changed everything, because one human decided to open his door. Mark didn't speak. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small. A new bracelet, made from both earthwood and Lurai metal. He handed it to her. For the one who helped me build more than a house. You helped me build a life. Nara took it gently, eyes bright. We built it together. Years passed. The name of the village became known across nearby sectors. Not as a threat, but as a whisper of hope. Go to Eden's Ridge, people would say. There's a place where the war doesn't follow, a place where humans and aliens live side by side. The syndicate never came back. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they feared the unity they once tried to crush. Either way, the garden grew. And so did the family. One day Nara stood on the same ridge where her escape pod had once crashed. Mark stood beside her. Children ran below, laughing. Drones flew overhead, planting seeds. She turned to him. You once said this was your cabin. Mark smiled. It was, she smiled back. Now it's our world. They stood together, hand in hand, and the stars above them blinked like gentle eyes, watching over a home built not from walls but from kindness, trust, and love.